Hello, everyone. This is the virtual portion of the Do Good Fair that is being hosted by the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies here at Austin Community College. My name is Matthew Martinez Mandel, and I'm the coordinator for the center. I've been at ACC for about 3 years now. Prior to coming to ACC, my background is in restorative justice facilitation. Thinking about this event and sort of what we hoped it would be as a center is at the start of this academic year, we did a huge survey of just talking to students, doing focus groups, all of these different things, really to figure out what issues were most pressing for students. What did students want to engage in the most? And what we realized is students know exactly what they want to talk about. Students are deeply concerned about a lot of different issues. However, the question that we often get is, how do I get involved? Where can I start? How can I, after I get started, move on and continue to work with other people? So the point of this fair, both in person and virtual, is to connect students with amazing organizations and amazing folks doing important work all around the country. So for this virtual panel, our focus is really on sort of the next steps of trying to address social change, whether it be through collaboration, education, research, or what have you. The goal is really to help students and help members of our community expand their impact and create the change and, be the change that they want to see in the world. So this presentation is being recorded as is the in-person session that is going on right now in the presentation hall at Austin Community College Highland campus. So without rambling on any longer, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce this amazing panel so that we can have a fantastic conversation about the issues and what we all collectively can do and have done about it. So starting with Naima McQueen, who is the Training and Education Director at Runway Roots. Naima is a weaver of stories and experiences, convener and strategist. She is a lover of people and systems and people as systems, and is driven by the passion, ideas, and joys of others and processes bringing those to actualization. The daughter and descendant of entrepreneurs and child of bedstay, Naima is deeply committed to the legacy of small businesses as cultural havens, community convening spaces, and sources of deep human connection, and passionate about their ability to thrive in each iteration of their existence. Specifically, Naima's work at the intersection of Black liberation, economic self-determination, and financial activism. Thank you so much, Naima, for being here. Next, we have Carla Beltran, who is an ACC student in the dental hygiene department. Uh, Carla is a second-year dental hygiene student in the Eastview campus of Austin Community College. Carla is expected to graduate in the upcoming weeks with their Associates of Applied Science degree in dental hygiene. They have been in the dental field for 9 years with a background as a pediatric dental assistant. Throughout their time in the program, they have been actively involved in community outreach initiatives such as Smart Smiles, which I hope we hear about later, where they help to provide preventative dental care to underserved population. Carla is also a member of SCADHA, the student chapter of the American Dental Hygiene Association, and Peers Against Tobacco, a student-led organization focused on oral health education and tobacco sessions. Next, we have Rachel, who is the executive director of the Hanger Foundation. Rachel began her journey in a world of events and impact with the Sun Bowl Association. And over the last 25 years, she has become a force in helping nonprofits and businesses grow, thrive, and raise more than $1.5 billion for causes that matter. Today, she serves as the executive director of the Hanger Foundation, a role she's held since 2021. Before that, she built and led her
I
own
know you're not drinking right now. Do you have wine?
consulting agency, Accelerated Charity Group, working with hundreds of nonprofits to expand their mission and revenue. She also played a key role in one of the most unforgettable viral fundraising moments of our time, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, which again, would love to hear more about later and how that all came to be. And if that weren't enough, Rachel was part of the tiny but mighty team that transformed the Lance Armstrong Foundation from a three-person office into a global cancer charity, raising over $40 million a year. She helped launch the iconic Live Strong wristband campaign, a cultural phenomenon that inspired millions and even led her to write a book on how organizations can spark the same kind of momentum. It's fantastic to have you here, Rachel. And then finally, but definitely not least, at least in my opinion, as someone who's totally not biased, we have Dr. Monique C. Norton, who is the Assistant Director for Graduate Recruitment and Admissions at the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution. As an avid lifelong learner, Monique holds a PhD in Human and Social Services, a master's degree in Human Behavior, and a master's degree in Cultural Anthropology. Prior to joining the Carter School, Monique worked in academic advising and recruitment, assisting students from various backgrounds, including military service members, in realizing their educational goals. She is passionate about helping potential students to navigate their journey with George Mason University from recruitment through graduation. So, genuinely a fantastic group of people with incredibly tremendous, diverse experiences. And what we're doing today is just having a conversation. So, with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started with the first question. We did a little bit of the introduction, but it's always great to hear your own stories. So, what is your current role in organization, and how did you get into your current career? Rachel, do we want to go ahead and start with you?
Sure. Let's see. How did I get started? I would say out of college, honestly, I was a general communications major, and I remember interviewing for jobs, and I had no idea exactly what I wanted to do. And I kept thinking, I knew what skills I had, but I wasn't quite sure how to apply them. And I started working, I got an opportunity at the Sun Bowl Association. So, working on college football, and that role was events and sponsorships. And the great thing about it is all of those bowl games are 501c3 nonprofit organizations. So that gave me my first taste of working in the nonprofit space and really being plugged into the community and getting to work with volunteers and board members. And we built out quite a few programs like Pump, Pass, and Kick, dance programs in the city that went year round, and really worked with the community to build up just activity and sports as a way to bring together folks from all areas within the city. And then when I moved to Austin, my mom had been diagnosed with breast cancer. So I knew I wanted to take the work that I had done in the sports space and do that in the cancer community. And so had the opportunity to start working with Lance and build out the Lance Armstrong Foundation. And after 6 years of doing that, focusing a lot on corporate partnership development, I started my own company and went down that entrepreneurship path and had an opportunity to build out organizations like Sierra Club and pancreatic cancer groups, literacy, you name it, all the different causes, and worked with some of them for years and worked with some of them just off and on specific projects. But that was a great opportunity to see a variety of different backgrounds of the nice thing about it was I got to work with a lot of people that are just really passionate about a specific cause. So again, whether they were passionate about literacy or maybe their child had a rare disease and so they started a nonprofit working with them, or it was a large national organization like Make-A-Wish, just working with all of those different individuals and learning about their passions and then putting my skills to work. And then I had met the Hanger organization 15 years ago. I was brought in for just a one-day consulting project. And after that, I thought if ever there were a place that I could see closing my work and coming to work full time, it was Hanger Foundation. They do amazing work for the more than 5 million people with limb loss or limb difference, along with people that wear orthotics. And so I started here 5 years ago and have been basically building out the nonprofit from being only funded by employees to really engaging our larger ecosystem of our business partners, our vendors, as well as our patients and their loved ones, and getting them engaged in our fundraising. So it's definitely been a journey, but has always had a theme of purpose and giving back to the community. I think that's really kind of been what drives me. And I've been blessed to be able to, put that to good use for a lot of different groups.
It's fantastic to have you, Rachel. And I think your story can really resonate with so many students. And in particular, especially going from a consultant role into an actual full-time role is the dream of every undergrad right now. So it's fantastic to know that that is a possibility. We won't be stuck in consulting roles forever.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And speaking of students, Carla, do you want to introduce yourself and sort of how you ended up here at ACC and the different programs and work that you've been doing?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name's Carla, and I started into getting into, my career, I guess you can say, right before COVID. I started as a dental assistant, but I didn't start classes till the year right before. So about 6 years ago, I had known I wanted to further my career as a dental assistant. Just to kind of broaden my horizons and dip my toe into what could be more out there for me. When I decided it was finally time to get back to it, I began setting up for classes, working full time while attending class part time as well. And then I decided it was just time to take my career to the next level. The current organization that I am with is SCADA, which is just the it's the student chapter of the American Dental Hygiene Association. It could be a little bit of a tongue twister. Now it's known as Dental Hygiene Student Club, so super easy to remember. So I'm currently the class representative for the graduating class of 2026, and that's more or less my position there right now. Honestly, the thing that excites me the most is just being able to provide services while simultaneously building relationships with patients, just helping them feel more confident and comfortable in their own skin with their oral hygiene is just what makes my day. And then when I see certain patients' face just light up after a cleaning, but that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much. And I think something that often, especially students forget, is when you're thinking about social good and trying to make a change in your community, as
Mhm.
much as we sort of orient towards, activists and social workers and, all those incredibly meaningful careers. But the reality is, you know, dental hygienists are also doing a fantastic service to the community, and our physical health is deeply intertwined with our overall
Mhm.
well-being. So it's fantastic to have you as well as providing a student perspective on this event.
Happy to be here.
And thinking about sort of a wide range of different pathways, Monique, do you want to talk about sort of your role at the Carter School as well as how you found yourself?
Sure. Well, a little background about me. I am one of those students that, I was the last semester in on my undergrad getting my bachelor's degree in cultural anthropology. I realized that I was graduating and was expected to actually be a real person and be an adult and move on and find a job and start a career. And I realized I hadn't really thought about it until it was my last semester, and I started to kind of lose my mind and freak out a little bit. And one of the things that hit me was I realized I don't know how to be a real person, but I'm very clear on how to be a student. I'm really good at doing that. So I decided I was going back to grad school. I was going to go to grad school and stay in school a little while longer. And so I decided to pursue my master's degree in cultural anthropology. And so I ended up getting my degree, cultural anthropology, minoring in family studies. My focus and my interest has always been on how people interact with each other, of various cultures, various backgrounds, and how they interact with each other, and just being able to learn from everyone else, from someone who's got a completely different background from you. So I moved after graduating with my first master's degree. I actually moved from Orlando, Florida to Washington, D.C., and I started working at a nonprofit working in youth programs. I've always loved working with young people, with students, with kids. And so that was my inroads. And I always thought that that's where I was going to, stay and really and truly be in youth programs, probably for my entire career. Um, After getting married and starting a family, I realized that the where I was not exactly the most convenient, and I got into and I reached out to an organization to a university in San Diego, which is where we were living at the time because my husband was prior military, and I got a job working in admissions and advising for a university out in California on a military base. It was the most amazing situation that, completely opened my eyes to, I am now in the position to be able to open other people's eyes to furthering their education, to getting a college degree, to getting their graduate degree. And in all honesty, I got jealous because I was enrolling students consistently in, their programs and they were all going to school. And I said to myself, well, if they're going to school, why can't I go to school too? Mind you, I already had a master's degree. So I ended up going back and getting a second master's degree studying human behavior. I have always just simply been fascinated with learning how people interact with each other and what makes them tick and what makes them learn from each other and how to get people to, see the value in each other with other cultures. My experience working with various military members from so many different backgrounds really opened my eyes to the value of, interacting with, people of totally different backgrounds from yourself. Um, so that's where I started working in higher education. Fell in love. As much as I love to be a student, I really and truly enjoy encouraging other people to become a student as well and to pursue an education. So at some point in time throughout, I ended up going back and getting my PhD in human and social services, still again focusing on higher education and how people interact with each other and how they are, how they benefit and how they grow from interacting with people from different cultures and different backgrounds and different value systems. And so I've been in higher education for the last, wow, 21 years, 20, yeah, about 21, 20 years now. Um, and I seriously do enjoy speaking with students who are excited about going to school or nervous about going to, pursue a higher education degree. Not sure if, that it'll fit into their lives, if they're, really capable of doing it. Um, and just being able to open their eyes to no matter what's going on in your life, if getting a degree, if going to school is something that they're excited about doing and they're interested in doing, that it is very possible and very doable. My degrees span, I have gotten my, I went to undergrad, of course, as an in-person student. My first master's student degree was an in-person student. My second master's degree was as a online student with with a four-year old. She was four, I think, when I started, or three, I think was she when I started. It's like so hard to believe to remember now because she's 21 now, so it's really scary. So when I started my second master's, she was young, she was, toddler, and my husband was deployed a lot. So, it was just the two of us around the house, and I was like, I can go to school, do this, not a problem. And then we decided to adopt a second child in the middle of that. So, I finished my second master's degree with a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old in the house, 1.5-year-old. So that was crazy. And then I went on and I got my PhD while my kids were in elementary school and middle school and, well, high school. Um, and I had a goal. I said I was going to finish my degree before my daughter graduated high school. I literally finished my PhD in March of 2022, and she graduated high school at the end on May 31st of 2022. So I accomplished my goal. I finished before she did. um, it has always been my interest and I get very excited about, seeing other people get excited about getting their education and, just opening their eyes and, to the value of learning and the value of understanding something new. I tell everyone, my passion is to learn something new every day. And so education is just something that, really moves me and really excites me. Um, we actually just had a signing day today for my son who's graduating this year. He's 17, so class of 2026. And he's just signed on to go to George Mason University as well. So I'm very excited about that. So he'll be a college student next year, which is completely mind-boggling to me. That I was in school when he was, we first brought him home, and now here it is that he's going to school. So it's, fascinating to me, but having conversations with him and his peers and his friends about, where are they going to school and what are they going to be studying and, I've had several conversations with some of his friends who, are not so sure about going to school and whether or not college is for them. And, being able to walk away from that experience or that conversation with their eyes opened and, them reconsidering whether or not, college is for them and they can do it and it is possible. So I have worked with, students who are, grown adults who've been working in, their career field for 20 something years and then they decide, okay, yeah, I want to go back and I want to get a higher education. I want to, get a master's or get a, do my PhD, but I don't know if this is something that I can do. I mean, my life is so full. And so, I've been doing, I have children, I've got a full-time job, and so just being able to share my experiences with them has, been something that I'm really excited about doing is just being able to, enlighten them that it is very possible to do it. It's not easy, but it is exciting, when you can see that, you are pursuing an education that about something that you're passionate about, that you get excited about. And so, this is just simply something that I thoroughly enjoy doing and, hope to continue doing it. I work with the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School here at George Mason University in Arlington, Virginia. And although my degree is not in analysis and resolution, it is definitely something that fits in line with everything that I've always
Mm.
studied and everything that I do. And I'm always excited about, being able to work with a student and get them through the admissions process so that they can now pursue a degree in something that they're passionate about. Um, and so at the Carter School, we have several different, we have an undergrad program in conflict
Mm.
analysis and resolution. We've got graduate programs, which is where I work in the graduate division. So we have a master's degree, which you can do in several different formats. We have a couple of dual degree programs. We have graduate certificate programs, and we have a PhD. And so, and we have a lot of, students who are from all different walks of life and all different backgrounds. We have a lot of international students doing our program. So it's been definitely an exciting journey for me
Mhm.
to be able to interact with students that come from so many different, walks of life and all over the globe. And just being able to, learn from their experiences as well as being able to, assist them through their process.
Yeah, and I think a point that you hit on that, especially working at a community college, is so important is that sort of imagining what is possible, where
Yes.
something that we actually talked about earlier today was that it's something like 87% of students who enroll at ACC, when they initially enroll, they're undeclared major. They know, they want to do something. They want to improve their life, be there for their family, be there for their community, and support them in whatever way. And it really is through education and opportunities that sort of what is possible starts to expand. Um, and then on that note, Naima, your organization really changed my opinion on what is possible, especially from a more corporate almost or like investment space. So can you talk a little bit about what your role is and how you found yourself there?
Absolutely. I'm working on not saying that it's a fluke that I ended up where I was. Because had you told me I'd be here even 10 years ago, I would have looked at you crazy. So my name is Naima McQueen. I use she, her pronouns. I am recently promoted to our managing director for Runway Roots. Previous to that, I was our national director for education and training. Runway Roots is a financial innovation firm that is centered in providing reparative capital to Black and Brown communities. Our founder started the organization with the inquiry, what would an economy look like that loved Black people? That has expanded in so many ways. But what I love about it is that it has given us new ways to explore money, capital, and resources. We are working within an economic system that was already pulled into identity just from the sheer shaping of it and what we've decided we value and don't value. Um, my initial role came in to help license our model because we had a really thoughtful friends and family model. So unlike other funds or lenders were thinking about how do you utilize this resource to leverage it for the better good, right? And so, you go get a personal loan or a business loan, and they're like, this is great. We love you. Here's the loan you have. Here's the interest we're charging you, which is the cost of your money, right? And yes, you need it for a thing, but we're going to go ahead and 45 days later expect you to pay back your first payment on that principal plus the cost of that money, that interest. You don't really get the time to leverage it, right? When we talk about starting a small business, we often say, go to your community, your friends and family money. But we know statistically that there are populations here in this country that don't have that access and systemically have not had that access. And so we really created a product that filled that friends and family gap, that 2 years of interest only payments comes with advising, comes with community. And we've expanded it so that we can be a resource that is utilized not just as a particular tool for funding, but a tool for building ecosystems. Um, I came into this particular role in this organization. This organization was my partner organization 5 years ago. I was running a nonprofit in the Bay Area. I was focused on supporting small businesses and creating the ecosystem, operating almost like a switchboard 211 for these small businesses. And Runway Roots was one of our like highlighted, funding partners. In fact, one of the things we did is we took over this publication called the Good Money Guide, where we helped small businesses understand the kind of capital that was best for them. And Runway was always like, this is the person, these are the people you want to be near. I burnt out of my ED role, was looking for my next role, and a partner said, you should join Runway. I was terrified of the founder because I just thought she was untouchable. The work they were doing was so amazing. Could I ever live up to what I think they do for our communities? The answer was yes. So I rolled on to a facilitation contract, and from there, rolled on to a consulting contract. It allowed me to work with them, build into the infrastructure while also winding down my CEO role in the other nonprofit. So I built the pipeline that brought me to this role, but that pipeline was also built from my MBA program. I am born and raised in New York, and all of my work has really been about the hustle. It's always been in youth development, nonprofit, mission-based work. I have been a bleeding heart my entire life. But I also believe in community, and I believe in potential. That has always been human-centric. So to think about human-centric work, work around potential, work around mission-based work, it's hard to see how I ended up in finance, but truly, capital as a tool is how we live our values. So I've been able in this role to bring in my work as a facilitator, my work as an activist, my work as a strategist, and to help build infrastructure, not just for our organization, for other organizations. There are so many ways in which we can utilize resources to build the kind of communities that we want to see thrive, the kind of communities we want to live in, right? Like I'm from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. I grew up with small businesses around the corner. My first job was in a small business, right? I am sitting here taking this call from my friend's house, who worked at that same small business. We just walked into the store that housed that small business. It's now 7 businesses later, but this is the impact and the history that comes with cultivating and curating a community that is designed for people. So I have somehow, in a convoluted way, built a life that is very much centered in how you live your values while utilizing particular tools to do that. In that work, I have also built quite a niche for myself as a consultant. I do a lot of strategy work with institutions. I do work in such a way that balances my own profit and loss, that I can take on pro bono businesses to advise. I take on 2 to 3 businesses every year to work with for 2 years to incubate their work and get them to sort of a profit and revenue generating place. But all of my work is really centered in how do we create the communities that we thrive in, that we can continue to raise up our families in, that we can come back to. There's so many places that people are raised in and they immediately leave, right? I was just doing work in Selma and Montgomery. What does it look like to activate spaces that call people home? So all of my work is really centered in that sort of local economy, and deeply, deeply embedded in relational engagement. The right relationship means everything.
It's just so cool to hear all of you talk about the diverse organizations and roles that you've all filled and have filled throughout your sort of career. And you all sort of hit on it, but I just want to open it up to the group of what is one thing that is sort of most exciting about your role, or what is one thing that you wish people knew about the work that you did? And I'll just open that up to whoever wants to take it first.
I can jump in, but only because I've been talking about this all day. Um, I think in particular, because I'm in nonprofit, people don't always equate nonprofit and finance, but truthfully, there's so many of us that are in this space. But I think storytelling for me is a key that we have called many names, marketing, PR, whatever it is, but storytelling, the why, the engagement, the passion, the investment is always the center of communications. And I think that oftentimes people are not, it's not the sexy thing, it's not the thing we fund, the thing we pay for, but it is the thing that entices us, right? It is the thing that connects us. And so I think that storytelling is both an underutilized thing, but also something that is starting to make its way into all the industries in terms of a priority and how we show up.
I'm happy to go next. I would say that what was definitely passionate for me is knowledge. Um, I was raised being told that your education is something that no one can take away from you. This is a world that's, someone will always be trying to take something from you, but your knowledge and the education that you have is something that no one is ever going to be able to take away. You can lose your job, you can lose your house, you can lose your car, but you'll never lose your education. The knowledge that you have gained is always going to be yours, and you can somehow manage to leverage that to, be able to take care of yourself and your family, throughout your life. Um, and it became something for me that knowledge was just simply exciting. I love learning new words every day. If I can learn something new, whether it's a word or a concept, whatever it is, it's exciting to me because now that's something else that I have that, that's all mine. And, being able to share that with other people that I have interacted with. I love being able to be in a room with, with various people and, just simply being able to interact with people from different cultural backgrounds. For me, enriches my humanity. It enriches who I am as a person. And I'm always looking for ways to be able to enrich other people as well. And so if they can share my experience, if I can share my experience with them, then I know that, somehow, some way, someone is going to gain something from that experience. My family is from the West Indies. And whereas, most of my family, a large portion of my family, I should say, still lives in St. Lucia. But, I was raised from the time I was 7 years old in the United States. So it's kind of a weird space for me where, I'm not really from the islands, but I'm from the islands, and so I've had that experience where, people meet me and they have no idea that I have a whole nother cultural side to me because, they just see me as me and I don't have an accent per se because I remember in second grade, I came and the entire class when we moved to the United States, no one had ever heard anyone with an accent like mine. And so, second graders can be really cruel. And kids would make fun of me and repeat everything that I said and, trying to mimic my accent. And so, I went on a campaign and I really and truly like worked hard to get rid of my accent, as an 8-year-old kid, 7 years, 8 years old. Um, but now as an adult, I recognize how beautiful it is to have so many people, yes, I have friends that were, who I have cousins who lived in New York. So half my mother's family actually moved to Brooklyn and, she was from the time she was 18 until she got married, that's where she was living. And so I have cousins who grew up in Brooklyn and, so it's very, circular situation. It's very, vast experience, and that's something that I think that was one of my excitements of, becoming a cultural anthropologist is learning about people and how people interact with each other. Being in the position at, of admissions, it seems boring. It seems like, okay, I'm just in a position to, bring people in so that they can sign up to go to school. And then they become, now they're having to pay a bill, to get your education. If there was a way in this world that we could, have students come and get their degree and get their education without having to pay for it, I would be right there. Sign me up. Let me help figure out how to make it move forward and work. Unfortunately, that's not the way that works. It's not the way the world works. But I love being in the position to be able to help people see past having to pay for your education and understand the value of having an education, whatever your concept is, whatever your, passion is, whatever the field is that you want to work in, you know, it's exciting to be able to learn something new and to know that that's something that's yours. And, no matter where you go or what you do, it's always going to be yours, and you're going to be able to leverage it in some way, some, shape, form, or fashion to be able to, move forward or to enhance someone else's life too. So
That's fantastic. And on the note of funding, and it's great to have you here. Something that I'm so proud that ACC is now offering is actually a free tuition program where if you graduate, whether it be from a high school in the service area, which is basically Austin and like I think 13 other counties around us, as well as earning a GED, which is so cool because a lot of programs just forget about GED earners. You get 5 years or 3 years if you are an associate's and then 5 years if you're in a bachelor's program. And it's just so cool getting to talk to those students and like seeing that door open for them and all the possibilities that education provides.
that is
Um,
definitely a beautiful thing, because in this, country especially, we have so many people who would, love to be able to go to school. And the funds are just simply not there. The finances are not there.
mhm.
And the way financial aid now is turning, unfortunately, the path that it's turning down, it's very disappointing. It's very unfortunate that, you're just not able to, at least be able to rely on financial aid to be able to support you. And like Naima was saying, you take a student loan out, but then, the interest that they attach to it, you have to pay to have, you have to pay the cost of the money that you've borrowed to be able to get an education so that you can go out and, now have a career. And unfortunately, that cost does not equate. It's not on the same level. You're paying, so much to go to school, and the career fields out there, unfortunately, sometimes the jobs are not quite the same. So it's a beautiful thing when you find a situation where you can, get a scholarship, get a fellowship, something to be able to, benefit you and support you in moving forward with your education. And so programs like that, are in the position to be able to give students, a free education, take it and run. you know, um, it's a, amazing experience to be able to say that, I got a degree and someone invested in me so that, you can now turn around and invest in someone else moving forward. So
And then I want to get Rachel and Carla involved within this conversation where you both work in such interesting roles. I just want to know like what what is the thing that excites you the most? Like what is something that you just wish people knew about your role?
I think for me, it's the thing that excites me the most, and the thing that I wish people knew about this was just the joy of the people that I get to work with on a day-to-day basis. So whether it's the people that are volunteering for our organization, the folks that work within the company that want to go above and beyond. We had two guys from the finance department this last week that they came to me. Last, I guess, 6 months ago and just said, we love golf and we love the Hanger Foundation. We want to do a fundraiser for you. And so I got to work with them for 6 months on hosting this amazing golf tournament. They rallied volunteers, they sold sponsorships. I met 25 new people that worked at the company that I didn't know before. And we raised, $160,000 on a Saturday. And it all happened because two people just happen to care and want to give back. So I think the thing that I love about all of these different roles, and kind of a theme that I hear throughout, is that it's all about the people that we get to work with, the people we surround ourselves with. And I would say one thing that I've learned over the years, whether it was when I was starting the consulting company or when we were working on different sponsorship programs, is that you have to remember, even though a lot of this is around big organizations, at the end of the day, you're working with individuals. So, find people that you believe want to do good in the world, and then just spend some time with them. Take a minute out of your day, have margins so that you can get to know them, find out what they're passionate about, and find out, I always try to start with a question around, how can I help you? What are you trying to accomplish in the world? What do you want to see? What do you care about? Who do you care about? And maybe I can connect you with some people that can help. Maybe there's some resources I know of that you haven't heard of before. But really starting from a place of servant leadership. And you'd be amazed at where that leads. It leads to job opportunities, it can lead to education opportunities, but it really does lead to a very fulfilling, joy filled life of just being surrounded with people that know that you're there for their good, and then they want to help you along the way with the things that you're working on as well. So just all about relationships, and that starts even in the classroom, reaching out to the person sitting in the desk next to you and asking them, what do you do on the weekends, and have you ever volunteered, and maybe I could volunteer with you at something that you care about. And just getting to know people and what's in their heart, and tapping into that and being a part of it, I think is the most rewarding thing that comes out of this job, and really has come out of choosing a career in social good.
Yeah, and then I did want to add just kind of what Rachel was saying, also being able to essentially just help out the community. And one thing about being a dental hygienist or, future dental hygienist is that with the degree, there's so much versatility on what we do. So we could not only be clinicians, but we can also work with maybe companies that help market and push out products that really just help out, oral health. We can also do administrative work. We can go on and become professors on our own and then teach the next upcoming classes on the importance of oral hygiene. But I think that's my thing, where the thing that I like the most about dental hygiene, that is just so versatile, all the different little branches that we can definitely go into afterwards. Definitely helping out the public is up there for me. Being able to see patients in my clinicals during class, I guess you can say, is so rewarding in and of itself. I see patients nowadays where they have advanced periodontal disease and just gum disease, and they haven't been able to see a dentist in so long because of financial constraints or just lack of time sometimes, or it wasn't even really on the forefront of their minds until they saw an ad and then they decided to come in. So whenever we see them, we educate them, of course, and then we give them a cleaning. And it's really the cheapest cleaning they'll ever have. I think at max we only charge like $40, but we do way more than just a cleaning. And we let them know basically the connection with their mouth and their body, and how, like you had mentioned earlier, the health of your mouth really does affect your body in so many different factors. And then vice versa. So, for example, we have a patient, that has diabetes. That inflammation that's going on can be manifested into the oral cavity, or even hypertension, high blood pressure, stuff like that. Um, and we look out for the different signs. And sometimes I've heard stories of dental hygienists that have caught cancer early, in the mouth or in the thyroid. And I think it's really cool to be on the forefront and be able to help these patients that wouldn't even be able to know that. Maybe even their PCP wouldn't have been able to catch it unless they had gone to the dentist. So that is one of my most favorite things about this career that I have chosen. One thing that I do know, or I guess the one thing that I do wish people would know more about, um, I guess, oral health is that it would especially be the connection that it has with the entire body. Just because sometimes we make some unhealthy decisions, and I mean, we're all human, I totally understand, but it's so easy to fall into those traps where you're just like, oh, it's just one vape, someone says, or it's just a bunch of sugary snacks every day as a reward, where we're like, yes, but, and it's little things like that. And it's really nice to be able to be and help educate the population and the public as well.
Y- Something that you're all kind of hitting on, which I think is really interesting, is even though you're really in different sectors and in really different roles, the importance of like communicating and relationship building and community building is like sounds so vital to the work that you all do. So for students who are trying to get into a social good career and trying to do that relationship building, do you have any advice or strategies that y'all have seen that are particularly effective at building those relationships?
I would suggest very seriously, we we're all in a world, and we all understand that when you're building your career, you have to consider, can I support myself? Can I make a living? Can I keep a roof over my head? Can I, keep the lights turned on? And one of the things that I, very seriously try very hard to make sure people understand when they're considering whatever it is that you want to study, whether you are going to college or you're not going to college, is that whatever subject matter that you're passionate about or you're excited about, you're not limited to one specific career path. And that's the beautiful part about this, is that you can be an entrepreneur. You can take the knowledge that you have and, direct it in any specific, path that really works for you, that really excites you, that really motivates you. Um, you know, I remember when I first, decided to get my degree in cultural anthropology, the first thing my father asked me is, so are you going to spend your life digging up bones? Um, and I was like, yeah, that's one branch of anthropology, but it's not the branch that I, study. So, and people tend to, be very closed-minded about, this is the path that's been widely populated, that widely broadcasted, that, if you go to school to become a lawyer, then you are becoming a lawyer, and that's it. If you're going to school to be an educator, to go to, be a teacher, then you're going to end up working in an elementary school or a high school, and that's all you can possibly do with a teaching degree. But there's so many different things that you can do with a teaching degree. You can, work with, underprivileged populations. You can work on curriculum. You can work in so many different, with nonprofit organizations. You can, there's just so many different varieties and so many different paths to each and every subject matter that you're studying. And I think it's one of those things that I encourage people to be very creative. You can have a subject that you're excited about. I mean, I am someone who, studies people. I love to interact with people and to learn something from other people, whether, it's from whatever their experience is, whatever their background is. And yet here I am working in higher education, and I'm not current. I have taught in the classroom. I'm not currently in the classroom now, but there are so many different paths that you can take. It doesn't matter what field it is that you're choosing to study. You can mold that into something that you're excited about and you're passionate about. And just working with people and being able to experience interacting with other people. And, if doing good is what you want to do, and that's something that really motivates you, you can do that as a political scientist. You can do it as an anthropologist. You can do it as a biologist. You can do it as a dental hygienist, being able to be creative about how you approach your career is, probably the most valuable aspect of, building your career, because now it's really yours. It's really something that, you get up every morning and you smile because you got to go to work, and you're doing something that excites you. So, I always tell students, please don't think that just because these are the career paths that you see listed out, that this is the only thing that you can do. Find something that really motivates you and excites you and make it happen, make it work. Creativity is important in every career field.
I think too, I was going to say similarly, thinking about, you might have a specific skill set. You might say, I'm an accountant. I mean, the person that I share some office space with is on the tax team for Hanger Corporate. I wouldn't say that tax, is necessarily someone's most exciting career, but he's chosen to work for an organization that does put the patients first, that has a consideration for the community, that does good work. And so even though tax is really the skill set and the background and the education, he's able to apply that for something for good. And so same thing with whether it's facilities management and working at a YMCA. It can be someone that's doing program management, fundraising, you name it. But regardless of kind of what your education path is or what your skill set is, there's still a way for you to find a role inside an organization or inside a program that really is doing something great and can, like you said, make you get really excited about getting up in the morning. The other thing that I was just going to say, Maddie, to your question about kind of what else could the students be doing, I feel like internships are really valuable. I had an internship with the American Cancer Society when I was in college. That gave me an opportunity to just kind of get a little bit behind the scenes. But one thing that I would say too is if you don't have time for an internship, or maybe you have a full-time job since you are putting yourself through school, possibly, also look at interviews. Just asking individuals that are in these career fields that you're interested in or working at organizations that maybe you are excited about, call them, email them, send them a LinkedIn message and just say, can I have 15 minutes, 30 minutes of your time? I just want to ask you 4 or 5 questions. And you can send them the questions even ahead of time. Or if there's a book that you're reading that you love, usually you can find those authors online pretty simply and you can get to their email address. Everyone is going to want to talk to you, just like us being on this panel today. Sometimes we think folks are not approachable, or we think of them as, oh, I can't reach out to them. I'm just a student, or I'm just early in my career. But in reality, they started out in the same exact place and they remember being there. So reach out, ask them, how did you get started? What were your first 2 jobs? What would you do differently? What do you love about this? And just, talk to some folks before you head down that path. And usually what happens is those conversations, if you show up, you present yourself well, you're making that initiative, that will lead to job opportunities, internship opportunities, referrals. And so that can be a great way for you to, it literally takes 30 minutes out of your day to make one of those phone calls, but it can really potentially change the trajectory of your life. So those are some of the things that I think were really valuable in that journey. I had a speaker, I was getting my MBA, and we had a speaker come in for the entrepreneurship program, and he had had some really great experience. And I think I raised my hand too many times asking questions. And so he said, let's meet after class. I'll answer all your questions. We're running out of time. And we've now been friends for 20 years. And we have fed each other job opportunities and consulting projects. And we've hired each other off and on for different things. And so you just never know, that extra 15 minutes or grabbing lunch with someone, making that initiative can really make a big difference in your career path, and then also just quality of life as well.
Yeah, I think often students sort of underestimate the value of just a conversation and talking to folks and how valuable just having that ability to communicate with other people is. Um, and on that topic of like communicating, Naima, with your organization, you're sort of by nature required to talk about money, which is often a thing that's really difficult, especially for folks in social good and like social impact spaces to talk about. So I was wondering, like, for you in the work that you do, what what has been working? How do you sort of break down those barriers and build those relationships?
Absolutely. I think before I answer from the work component, I think I'll tack onto what Rachel said from a human component. It always shocks people when I say that I'm deeply introverted. I can show up for work. I can show up as the mayor of the town for work for sure, because there's a purpose attached to it. But then I'm going to go home and it's going to take me 3 days to recover. And so I think it was hard for me to recognize that as a student because there's a lot that I didn't know about myself. But now that I do, I've got a couple of rules as an introvert and as someone who I consider myself neurospicy. So there are a lot of ways in which I have to care for my mental health and how I show up in the world as someone who's also externally facing. I have a 90-minute rule. I go into an event and I know I got 90 minutes, whether I'm showing up right on time or 15 or 30 minutes late. If I'm still ready to go after 90 minutes, I'm leaving. If I'm not ready to go, I'm going to stay there. The other aspect of it is I give myself a list of 3. There's 3 people that I'm going to research before any networking event because I only go to a networking event that makes sense. I'm oftentimes going for at least one person I know I want to talk to, a second person that I maybe want to talk to, and a third person that I leave open space for like random connection. But I promise you, if I've made 3 connections within 30 minutes, I'm also leaving. So for students that are looking at networking and trying to figure out how to network as introverts, giving yourself a timetable, I have found is really helpful, very intentional. I'm also a rabbit hole queen. So like I will dive down the research rabbit hole all day, every day. So as an introvert, as someone who loves research, as someone who loves authentic connection, but also I struggle because I'm deeply introverted and have to manage that differently. I've got to be really intentional about that time. Um, on the work side for communication, you're gonna have to give me that question one more time. So you were
Um,
asking,
yeah, like when it comes to like having those difficult conversations, especially when it comes to
okay,
like,
I'm
yeah.
back. Awesome. For the difficult conversations, so one of the things I'm really lucky about is that our founder has put out a book. She put out a book a couple of years ago called Believe in You Money. That book is really centered around economic trauma and financial trauma and money trauma. So I get to talk not just about money all day, every day, but I also get to my background, my college degree is in psychology and Black studies, and not just psychology, but developmental psychology, which means my brain and my interest is always around how we understand and how we develop our opinions about things. Money trauma is one of those things. Money trauma is a learned experience, and for some of us, it's an intergenerational trauma embedded in our DNA. We also work within an economic system that, for many of us, is built upon the backs of our ancestors, right? There's a lot to unpack with that. What I learned over time, particularly as someone who went from like a really good worker bee to a really good leadership bee, money trauma is the type of thing that we have to explore because it was impacting the decisions that I made and how I made them as a CEO. So even now, the conversations that I have, the trainings that I do are not just with entrepreneurs or not just with the staff of an organization, but I also do a lot of coaching and engagement around the C-suite level because how you understand money, your relationship with money impacts your conversation around budget, resourcing, access, abundance, culture, right? It impacts all of these things. Um, I am a very person forward leader. So in these conversations around money, I'm always centering around what are your goals and what is your history, right? Because that's going to influence how you get there. I'm a very strategic person. I get pulled in for, strategic advising. I get pulled in to create 3 to 4 or 5 year strategic planning sessions, all of those things. But I'm going to center every single individual in that room. I'm going to have you do some work around your own personal money trauma. And then we're going to explore how that money trauma is influencing the decisions you are making about resourcing the work that we need to do. It is irresponsible for us to feel like our personal experiences with money are not influencing the ways in which we lead and the ways in which we engage in the workplace. I feel particularly privileged that I get to talk about this all day, every day. And I tell people all the time, like, I grew up cash poor. I'm privileged. I grew up culturally affluent. It's a term I coined in college, but I have not trademarked yet, so don't steal it. Um, but that also goes into that conversation about money trauma. I think being able to engage folks, it takes a particular kind of facilitator. You have to be trained in the conversations. I do believe that wholeheartedly in terms of how you engage sensitive conversations. But I think the fact that I actively get to engage these conversations on a regular basis also helps me move past the taboo of talking about money consistently, both as a woman of color, and even just like a human in this world.
Yeah,
One
absolutely.
thing that I was going to just say, I love that whole concept. I feel like I'd love to learn more about just that whole concept of money trauma and how.
She already sent that email. So you and I are
Yeah,
gonna,
we need to. Yeah, we got follow-ups. One thing that I found when I was getting into this space, I had started out working in events and sponsorships. I was doing a lot of fundraising and marketing work. As I realized what I wanted was to be in leadership positions in nonprofits in particular, I realized that my communications background didn't really have, I would say, a significant accounting or financial back piece to it. And so that's what sent me back to school to get my MBA, was just that I felt like exactly what you're saying. I
Mhm.
felt like I had my own personal background with finances and accounting, but I didn't have the confidence in that. And so felt like I really needed to go back, learn, study specifically around that, and then be able to bring that. And that would help
Yep.
qualify me for some of those roles and make me,
Hmm.
sit in a better way, not only for my job, but also board membership that I was sitting on for other nonprofits, church membership when I was sitting on those boards, so just being a better citizen, being more community minded, and having a little bit more of an educated approach to how I was handling my finances and the finances of these other organizations was important. So that's definitely too, when we talk about what classes maybe would you add, if I could go back to my undergrad, I probably would add a few finance classes to the mix, whether it's I'm going to become an entrepreneur and I needed to manage my own finances for the company, or like I said, doing this work on behalf of others. But I do think having that, and also when you're more knowledgeable about it, like you were saying, Maddie, it makes it a lot easier for you to come to the table and have sometimes those, difficult conversations about spending money, about saving, whatever it might be. When you feel confident in your research, you've done the work, you feel good about your education around that topic. It makes those difficult conversations a lot easier to have because you're coming from a place of feeling informed, and ready to have the discussion.
And I think what I would add really briefly is even though I say if you had asked me 10, 15 years ago, I would have looked at you crazy for the fact that I'm in the position I'm in. But what I have learned over the course of time is that finance is just another language, which is why I have fallen in love with it, right? So I got this start. I'll never forget my mentor was like, I think you should teach our financial forecasting class. And I was like, I should teach what for who? I don't do numbers. And there are a lot of us that say that in entrepreneurship. I don't do numbers because it is a different language, right? But there's nothing like cash will always be emperor, but data is king. So when we're talking about power, empowerment, what is possible, yes, take the class. But I also realized that the my first taste of this sort of experience and understanding the role of finance in the space was because I was running a club on campus.
Yep.
I got my start budgeting for my club on campus. And then that ended up moving into the fellowship where even though I wasn't like the technical business person, we got to our city government week and I was like, yes, take me to the office of the city budget. Tell me, let me understand this, right? Let me understand what we value based on what's on this. There's a level of accessing language through finance and connection, right? But those skill sets also show up in your extracurriculars, right? So being really intentional, yes, with your classes, but with the job. Like I worked three jobs while I was not, don't do what I did. I worked three jobs in undergrad and was like the head of a club, like did all this stuff. And all of those roles influenced how I show up in the workplace now, right? And I wish I could say like I had learned all the things in class, but I was fighting a lot of the curriculum. So there's a lot I learned just from being on campus with my peers.
Yeah, absolutely. That ability to interact and grow through like clubs and organizations is really valuable. And it often feels like, people really focus on like, am I in the right class? Am I working with the right professors? And all of that is certainly important, but building those relationships with your peers is also incredibly important. And on that note, Carla, I want to bring you into the conversation. You being someone who regularly works with your peers through really cool student organizations. So I'm wondering, what is the approach that you take with other students in trying to build those relationships, especially around like common causes?
Yeah, so especially in the dental hygiene program, we do a lot of community work. For example, like Smart Smiles. That's a organization where we go out to the elementary schools and we provide free of charge sealants to essentially elementary school kids. So, all we need is a parental consent, and then me and my peers are able to just go out and collectively just work together and provide these services to all these little kids. Um, as far as me and my peers, also, a lot of them are also in SCADA. So our student chapter for the dental. association, Dental Hygiene Association. And amongst us, because they're also officers, we coordinate and we just kind of look and see what events are going on in the community. And if there's an opportunity for us to set up a table, then we sign our names up and then we go. Me and the vice president actually are also part of Pierce Against Tobacco, which is another organization that actually helps provide tobacco cessation education or resources to people that have a really hard time quitting, even though they know they're ready to start. So whenever there's events going on in the area, that's more or less how me and my peers go about it. We look for these little opportunities, and then we get a couple of us, and then we make a day, and then we go to the events. I think the most recent one, actually, there's a Smart Smiles Day about to come up in about 2 weeks. So that will be our next one up north Austin. So we'll be up there in the area, but that's more or less how me and my peers do it. Mm.
That's fantastic. And
I just want to add that,
mm,
one of the things that I love about working for the Carter School is, the way that our classes work is, and this is for me, it's a selling point for, any college program that you want to do, is that one, our class sizes, we keep them really small. So, you're in a class with less than 20 people and all of the faculty members there, it's a very interdisciplinary program. So you have faculty members that are political scientists, are historians, are, anthropologists, sociologists, all various, backgrounds, but they all come together and their focus is not just standing in the front of the class and talking to students, but encouraging interaction between students. So, you can walk into any number one of the classes and, all the chairs will be rearranged and they're all now sitting around in a circle and they're having a conversation. And the faculty member is sitting there having a conversation with them. And, and you would wonder, you're like, is there teaching going on? And, there may not be teaching, in the formal sense going on, but there's definitely learning and people are learning from each other. And that is one of the things that really excites me and makes me passionate about, working with this specific, program is because, we are in a field, with, you're working with a field of, conflict resolution and you have to work with people to be able to resolve a conflict. You have to be able to work with people to understand where they're coming from in a situation in order to resolve it. And it's an amazing situation where you can sit in a classroom and learn from your peers. You can interact with with each other and have a conversation. I like Naima as I'm very much an introvert. I can stand up in front of a room and I can have a conversation. I can do a speech, but because I truly enjoy research and learning things, it does take some work for me to, be able to approach someone and have a conversation. And like Rachel was saying, just make phone calls and, reach out to people. That's not the easiest task for me to do. And sometimes it takes a lot of work for me to build that and build myself up to be able to, just randomly reach out to strange people I've never met before. Because my introverted self says, no, we're not doing that. That's not even on our radar at all. Um, but then the excitement for me is that person might have something that I can learn and I might learn something new today. So, you sometimes you have to push yourself past your own limitations so that you can gain something. And just being able to interact with other people just really can, allow you to be able to blossom in a field that you want to blossom in, but you're just not sure how to go about doing that. And this is an opportunity for you to be able to do that. So, getting past not only your financial trauma, but your own personal, communication trauma, and just being able to, reach out and communicate with other people, and I was not one of those like Carla's involved in, student groups, which is amazing. I was not that person in college. I did not join organizations per se. I had friends, I had people who were sought me out and were like, I've seen you around campus and I haven't met you. Why have I not met you? And so then I ended up interacting with other people and joining people from, different things. Yes, exactly. So, it's like you end up in circles that you never imagined being in, just from interacting with one person. I just remember very distinctly is that I ran into one young man, while I was in my undergrad degree, and he literally walked up to me and he said, I know all the Black people on this campus, and I don't know you, and that's a problem. At least it is for me. And I looked at him like he was completely crazy. I was like, and why is that my problem? But just interacting with him, I ended up learning so much and just interact because I met so many new people from so many different backgrounds. And, that was something that I was able to gain. And so sometimes it doesn't take you meeting, 12 new people, in a month. But if you meet one person, they are now they're giving you the opportunity to, meet all the people that they know. And I work with an organization called Diplomatic Perspectives, and it's, one of their main focus is getting young people, high school students, a passport so that introducing them to traveling the world and, getting them excited about traveling the world. And that is something that, I don't think our young people are invested enough in doing is that, we just figure, okay, just need to go to school. They need to do all their extracurricular activities. They need to get great grades. But then, parents don't always think about introducing them to the world in general and all the things that are out there to benefit from and that they can experience. And it's an amazing way to be able to open your eyes to new experiences, to be able to open your eyes to something that you would never have experienced living on your own in your own little bubble. Um, and I'm not from, my family's not from the US. So, we have traveling is, second nature to us, but it's not to everyone. And, I think the first time I met someone who had never left the same town that they grew up in. They went to, preschool, elementary school, high school, and they'd never actually left the state. And I was completely, shocked. I was like, I don't understand how does that work? you know, um, but, and then they learned something from me because they'd never met anyone from an island, from a West Indian island. And, so they had no idea what that meant or what, what that includes. So, sometimes you just never know. You encounter somebody, you know, in a strange situation and on a random experience, and you can open your mind to so many different aspects and so many different opportunities that are out there. So, like I said, being creative and not limiting yourself is, and you don't have to take it all at one time. You don't have to swallow, one big giant pill, little bits at a time. Naima, I absolutely love the whole concept of, two to three people and then you're done. I need to seriously borrow that method because, that will work for me.
Let's chat. I have worked it. I introduced my partner to it, and now he adopts that for everything. It's a really, really lovely
Yes,
existence.
so at least now I know I'm growing, I'm expanding, but I'm not having to, punish myself for it or, really and truly, tap myself out. My daughter has this thing where she started saying her social battery is low. And so when her social battery is low, she's done. She disappears and she does not interact anymore. She's just done. Um, so it's a great experience, it's a great way for her to be able to manage, what she can handle and what she can't handle. And I love that for her. I'm so very proud of her for doing that. But that's something that I'm still trying to learn from her as well. So, there are a lot of people, especially in this field of doing good, that, are introverts and they want to do well. They want to do so much good for the world, but that's, taxing, for someone who's an introvert and someone who's not great about getting out and meeting people. And I just, want to encourage everybody to, not limit yourself, to, take it one step at a time, little bites at a time, and, you can still grow and you can still work through that and, learn. So
Yeah. And we're just about out of time. So this will be the last question, just really quickly for everyone is what does it mean to work in a social good career? Like, how do you sort of think about your role as someone doing that work? And then also an opportunity to brag. How are your different organizations serving the communities that you serve?
well, I can keep going. what does it mean to work in a social good career? For me, meeting new people, working with people enriches my experience in life. Um, it's just one of those things that I think makes me a better person is, having the experience of learning somebody else's experience. And I love being able to enhance anyone else's life in any way that I can possibly do that. Even if it's in the smallest little experience of, make them laugh for the afternoon, put a smile on their face for that afternoon. And then they walk away and they realize, oh, wait, that experience, that was a good experience. Working in admissions with students, I have had students who have gone through their entire program and they come back and they sit in my office for, they're like, can I just borrow you for 2 minutes? And, they come back to share that I really helped them get over the fear of coming back to school, of getting their graduate degree. And that really put them on a path to be able to move forward and really put them on a path to be able to, push past all of their, anxieties or second guessing themselves. And they're having a great experience and they've loved every moment of, coming back to school. So now they're, they're graduating and they're so excited about the fact that they made it. That right there means that I've done something right. I've done something well. And, I did good because I actually impacted someone else's life in a really positive way. The thing that really works for me as working at this organization, because I've worked at various, several different universities doing admissions work and encouraging students to go back to school. And it's always been a thing for me is if I can get you to take on your own education and get excited about it, then I've done something great. But it's also important to me that I'm with a university or with an organization, with a unit that really is invested in their students. And the one thing that I can truly say is that the Carter School, we don't consider ourselves to be, a college university unit that, students come, we educate you and we send you on the door, out the door. We call ourselves a community because once you become a student with us, you are a community, you're part of our community. We don't let you go. You come back, and we might lose you for a minute, but the minute we find you again, that's it. You're a part of us and you're back into the community and you can add to the community. You can take what you need from the community, but you are, definitely in a situation where you're being, welcomed in, and we want to encourage you and help you and assist you in any way we possibly can. And that's one of the things that I love about the Carter School is that they're always looking for ways to benefit students, to benefit, their education experience, to be able to push them forward and encourage them to be creative in the field. The faculty members are amazing about encouraging students to think outside of the box, which works very well for me because I don't like boxes. Um, Boxes are very stifling and I don't like them at all, and I don't work well inside them. So, being able to think outside of the box and be creative about whatever it is that you do, really excites me. And being able to see other people doing that for themselves really, I think is something that's definitely doing good.
Carla, I know you have a hard out, so I want to get to you and um, sort of like how do you think about yourself doing social good while you're doing dental hygiene work in the community?
Yeah, I think the main aspect of doing social good when it comes to dental hygiene is more of an intrinsic approach, I guess you can say. We don't do it for monetary compensation. It's the satisfaction that we get from just helping others and then providing the world with a little bit more net positive. Even if it just means giving someone a really good cleaning, getting someone their confidence back, or being able to provide services, preventative services for children and communities that don't normally get services on the regular basis because, for certain reasons that they can't go to the dentist or they're not able to seek out preventative health care. Honestly, I guess to me, it just means improving the world altogether and people's lives with just pure intention and then just creating positive change in the end. As far as my role and the organization, I feel like we really help the communities we serve by setting up shop at, events, of course, and getting to meet people that stop by our table. Whenever people do come by and talk to us. We help distribute the resources, whether it be a flyer for the affordable cleanings that we do here at the school, or providing them with a helpline for those that are just in a rut and they just really need help and support from anywhere that they, that we feel that we can help. Of course, we also have events like Smart Smiles, and then we also have this other event called Bastrop Day, which it's one day out of the entire semester where we get high school students that come over to our clinic and we do everything in one single visit. So they don't have to come back for multiple visits, just the one, and we make sure that they leave with their teeth cleaned, oral health is aligned, they know where they're at, and copies of their x-rays and their charts and everything that they need. We also do sealants and this thing called SDF, which is just specialized fluoride that we put on cavities that are starting, especially for people that can't really afford restorations, or if they can just wait a little bit longer, before they save up a little bit more money to get fillings or crowns or anything like that. Um, I feel like these experiences have allowed me to see firsthand the importance of accessible care and the meaningful difference it can make in underserved communities, especially those that don't necessarily have access to these because of social determinants.
Awesome. I think for my group, there's a couple of different ways that that we're impacting the communities, and I think of that in a couple of different communities. So, one being our employees at Hanger. So we have over 7,000 employees throughout Hanger, and so part of my role is engaging them when they want to do good works in the world. So maybe it's a prosthetic clinician that wants to travel to Kenya and work at a youth program and provide limbs for children there. So providing them with travel grants, connecting them with the nonprofit that they can work with, or like I said, helping facilitate if they want to do something here locally. The next one is the nonprofits that we work with. We have over 900 nonprofit organizations that are doing work on behalf of people with mobility challenges. That could be someone that has limb loss, limb difference. It could be someone wearing a brace or device of some kind. Maybe it's a stroke survivor. So someone with diabetes. So all of these nonprofits are basically coming to us with their programs and efforts, and they want to make sure that they're accessible so that, if there's someone that wants to try wheelchair basketball for the first time, or a veteran that wants to try scuba diving, or someone that wants to try a new baseball program, that money is not going to get in the way of them kind of living life to the fullest, regardless of their mobility situation. And so the foundation, we work with those nonprofits to give them funding. And then I also work with them to provide consulting and suggestions on other places where they can get funding, other organizational development ideas. And so just impacting those nonprofits is one. And then our larger patient population, working with them, if they're interested in something in particular, making a lot of connections. If they say, I'm in Indiana and I want to do something, but I haven't left my house for 10 years, making connections with them to get them out on sled hockey, which is a program that we fund in Indiana, or maybe it's horseback riding. And so just working with our patients, the clinics do a great job of supporting the patients inside the clinic walls, providing them with devices. But our job as a foundation is, once they return home, how can we support them? It might be wheelchair ramps, it might be speech therapy for stroke survivors, you name it. And so just working to make sure that they have everything that they would like to participate in, and that there's no barriers for them. And then we've also launched a new program for anyone with a mobility challenge that's interested in actually getting involved in this orthotics and prosthetics industry. We provide scholarships for them to go back to school and get their associate's degree as a clinician assistant. And so there's kind of a career path between the Hanger corporate and the foundation that allows those individuals to not only be a member of our community, but actually to go a step further and become a part of the profession as well. And we know that that makes a huge impact on the outcomes of the patients that are coming in and out of the clinics, that they see someone that maybe looks like them or has something that they're dealing with that they can relate to. And so those are just a couple of the ways that I'm specifically supporting the Hanger Foundation communities.
And Naima, I just want to end with you of just what does it sort of mean to work in a social good career and, you know, w- how is your organization impacting the communities you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking about this a lot because my undergrad degree is in psychology and Black studies, and then I got my MBA with a focus on social impact consulting. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about the definition of these kinds of terms. I was on the PhD path, but then we started defunding programs, but that's a whole other conversation. I think that working in social good, social impact, however you define these terms, is first and foremost about your values. I think that the opportunity to work in social good is deeply a privilege because it means that everything you do and how you work is in lockstep with your values. I have taken different kinds of paths to get here, but I'm grounded in my values around service to humanity and service to community and what that means. And every way I show up in this work is aligned with that. I don't actually do work that isn't aligned with that particular personal purpose. And I think that the privilege and sometimes the challenge of working in social good is that it is deeply connected to your personal values. It means that you are living your personal values both in your social life and at work. And sometimes it is hard to see, I think, the distinguishing line for that. That is the challenge. That is the way in which you mature in this work. But once you are able to see that work and see how both your social and professional inform each other in social good, it means that regardless of the role, regardless of the organization, the work you do feels like your work, no matter what, right? My work has felt like my work, whether I was working with young people, teaching financial literacy, teaching people how to build out their profit and loss, helping people to underwrite, facilitating around power and repair, right? Whether the work was done in Brooklyn, in the Bay, in Selma, right? It has felt specifically like my work because it still comes back to the idea of building community. It still comes back to the idea of building community authentically through our skill sets. And we've done that through difficult conversations, right? Like I think that is the truth about it. Social good and doing work in social good is fantastic because there's nothing better than contributing to the world. But I think what brings it a level higher is that it really truly requires you to do your own personal work to be aware, right? To connect your work and your productivity to your relationships. And that's a very complicated space, but it is also the most rewarding space that I think you could ever work in.
Well, I just want to say thank you all for being here once again. This was an absolutely fantastic conversation with four amazing human beings and amazing organizations that they represent. So I just wanted to thank you all once again for being here. Um, so thank you so much.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much
thank
for
you.
having us.
Thanks. Nice meeting you all.
It was
Thank
nice